When it comes to crafting, I love my stamps. I really do. And I like to do a lot of funny stuff with them. I like to play around with layering them. I love the look of cut out stamps. I love having some dimension, some pop on my stamped images. The one thing I don't totally love, mostly because it takes a lot of time, I don't love cutting out individual stamps. Okay, I certainly did not love sitting here and cutting out these gears from a slightly larger stamp that had a few more things attached to it. Today, I am excited to show you how the ScanNCut has absolutely changed my stamping life. Now, the ScanNCut will scan stamped images. This one I have out because this is one of the ScanNCut's favorite stamps of mine. You can see how this has a very solid, clear, simple outline, okay? It's very easy when the ScanNCut scans this in. It goes, oh, okay, I see your bunny. You want me to cut around her. Now, I can stamp this in black. I could stamp it in a color. I could stamp in paint. I can emboss it, whatever. As long as the stamped image is high quality and not, let's say, I'll just pull out an ink at random and stamp it once here for you. As long as when I stamp it, it isn't, say, like that, where only part of the stamped image is actually visible and it's scratchy and there's spots, there's gaps. As long as it is a clear and crisp stamped image, which is what we are going for and what we want, as long as when I stamp it down, I have a nice crisp image like so, it's going to scan it out every time. It's going to cut it out beautifully. And then I can have all my fun. I can spend all my time coloring it with watercolors, with inks, with little pens, whatever I like. And life is good, okay? Now, if you're wondering like, well, okay, but May, what are we talking about here? Why are we talking about this? Here's the thing. Most of my stamps are not friends with my ScanNCut. If I try to ScanNCut this, it doesn't, it'll recognize some of these very bold parts, but it doesn't recognize because there's not a clear outline as far as the machine is concerned. It's seeing a lot of different things. I have a lot of stamps like this where, for example, here's another one. The ScanNCut would have no idea what to cut here. It would be really confused. And this is probably not the greatest example because I really wouldn't try to cut that particular one out. But I think you get my point. There's a lot of stamps like this where maybe there is a part. For example, here's one where if I want to cut the clock out, it's going to recognize the lines all around the clock. But what if I just want the clock? Well, here's what we're going to do. I've been working in here all day. Actually, we're really and truly, I've been running so many tests. Most of these are cut out by the ScanNCut, actually. I've been running all these tests trying to figure out how can we make this work? How can we make this work? Well, that is exactly what I'm going to show you. All right, so first of all, we're going to take a stamp, and I am going to use, for our first demonstration here, this flower. This flower, let's use the word befuddles the ScanNCut because it's a very sketchy, artistic flower, and there's so many lines, and there's actually a number of spots where the lines have a gap. So where there would be an outline, there's actually a little kind of a spot or a gap or things in between, and it gets all confused. Here's what we're going to do. First of all, I'm going to stamp my stamp. And you're looking at this and you might be thinking, May, you just said it has to be a solid, strong outline. Well, what if I want a soft gray? Or what if I want it to not be such a strong outline? Well, here's what we do. This is just a piece of clear plastic. It happens to be, there was a long time ago where I was doing a bunch of techniques with the transparencies like you would use for an overhead projector. Okay. Watch how fast this is. I'm going to take a blue, I have a blue Sharpie pen. Any color pen so far that I've used, as long as it's a fairly bold color, is going to work. Now look what I'm doing. I am not attempting to totally color this stamp. I am just trying to get close. And I'm not worrying. If you're worried about you want something just so, you're going to need to slow down a little more than I am. I'm only touching the lines that would be the very outside of where I want this to be. When I lift this up, it's going to give me only the outline. So once we have that and we're happy with it, the next step is to get out that ScanNCut. I am going to need a piece of white paper. It has to be white paper and it has to have nothing on it. It has to be a nice, clean piece of white paper. And this is important because we want the machine to only see the image that we've drawn. And then here's what I do. I try to line up the image somewhat square, the transparency, and I am using the cutting mat here. And there's a good reason for all of this, as you'll see. The one thing I do, and this has nothing to do with the tackiness of the mat, I just need to make sure that when I actually go to do my magic here, that nothing can move. I put a little piece of tape at the very top or on one of the sides. I'm actually taping where the mat is not sticky. A little bit of Scotch tape is not going to hurt anything. It's not going to hurt your mat. It's not going to hurt your image, nothing at all. And then I will move this paper into position wherever it happens to be. And we're going to go ahead and go into Scan and Direct Cut and go ahead and scan this in. Now, I would just tell you on mine, on my blue one that I had done, there was actually a couple of spots that were a little incomplete. And it didn't recognize it. If it doesn't recognize it, either just go back over with your pen, or if you have a little more bold pen or a little darker pen. I just went back over with black because I didn't want to go, keep trying a bunch of times. So once it is scanned in, I will go in and just kind of pull the corners in so that I make sure if there are any dark edges or strange little cut spots that are going to appear, that they're gone. And I will also go in here and add a little bit of a margin. Usually this is what I will do. You don't have to, but it depends on what I'm cutting, but I'll add a little bit of a margin and you say, okay, it's ready to cut, but wait, can we really cut? Because this is what we have down. No, and this is why we're on the cutting mat. We're gonna slide out the piece of paper and leave the transparency alone. This is the other reason I put a little bit of tape on my transparency, to really make sure that everything is set. And let me try to move my camera down just a little so you can get this. Now I have my cutout piece of paper with my stamped image on it. And what I'm going to do with this, I am going to put a little tape on it. Again, this has nothing to do with the stickiness of the mat. The Scotch tape is not going to damage our mat in any way. The little bit of tape is because I'm doing a lot of wiggling and moving, and even a 1/4 inch one way or another is going to matter a lot. Now here's the great thing about these transparencies. I can use these, I can save these someplace. I can do as much as I want with these for as long as I want. You just want to make sure, I don't usually take the mat out, although I suppose you could. I usually just kind of wiggle this around until I feel like it's centered at the spot that I want. And when I feel like it's centered exactly at the spot I want, and my Scotch tape fell off here, I make sure that my Scotch tape is down somewhere where it won't interfere, and I just double check. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it pretty darn close. At that point, I remove this, remove the tape from it, throw the tape away, and I can save this, since this is a favorite stamp, and I can reuse this now as many times as I want, but we're going to set that aside. What I need to do now is just press on my paper gently to make sure that it's going to stick here to my mat. And once I'm satisfied with that, I just have to cut. And it's finished cutting. So let me eject my mat and I'll come up here and show you the big review. Look at that. Now, if I get really super picky, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be a few little spots that are maybe slightly more or slightly less. And, it's really quite simple because of the, let's call it kind of a hack that I've got going on here. Depending on exactly what spot of the line the ScanNCut's picking up, it's going to cut out centered based on the doodle that I did. It didn't cut centered based on the stamp itself, it cut on my doodle. Okay, so there is a little human error going on here with me, which means there's a little bit going on here. But the time savings is so worth it. That takes like 2-3 minutes, you know, because you're only having to trace the part that you want it to actually cut. And then it gets even better. It gets even better because then you could take stamps. I mean, you could take any stamp whatsoever, as complicated or as simple or as silly as you want, whatever part of it you want, and you can have your machine cut it out for you. So for example, those fancy leaves that your machine is always looking at and going, oh my goodness, you know, I don't know what to cut. There's text, there's lines. You could have your own leaves cut out all the time. In my case today, what I'm going to do for my project is I am just going to cut the angel out of this stamp and do several layers of stamping. First, I'm going to decide the angel that I cut out, how do I want to use her? And I'm going to stamp this with black ink. Okay. Get black ink all over that. And then I am going to just stamp, and I'm going to stamp onto watercolor paper because I want to be able to color a lot. Now my stamp, I didn't put enough even pressure at the very top, so the very top's a little light. We don't care. That does not matter at all because we are totally only going to save and use the angel part. So how we're going to do that is we're going to take another square of clear plastic, and this is the one that has the flower on it, but don't worry about it because we can just use it and cut it apart. And this time what I would do is just trace the angel, trace her wing, if I want her shoulder and her arm to come out, whatever part I want. That's the only part that I'm going to trace. And once done, and it only takes a second, I repeat the process of take this to the machine, scan in, and all those steps that I just finished showing you. And it's so much fun, you guys, because what you're going to end up with, well, you end up with this, which is maybe not the prettiest, but that's okay. We don't mind at all, because you're also going to end up with this, which has just been, that's just the cut out portion. Now I can save this and do something with it. I could also prop this up. I could actually do this where I then cut this, mount it onto another piece of paper or whatever it is that I'm going to create from, and then put this, say, on foam adhesive after coloring and prop this up like so. I could also, and what I've done here a couple times actually, what I could also do is play around with stamping that image and with different colors. This is just with different colors of ink. I could watercolor, I could heat emboss, whatever I like. And then when I'm ready, I will just go in with this other one, and I could put it directly on top, or again, I could use some foam and prop this up slightly for my project and have a lot of creative fun. And it's all thanks to, because to do something like this, I would need to get a craft knife of some kind, a nice sharp one, and I would have to sit there with the craft knife and painstakingly cut this out. And it would take a long time, shockingly long time. You wouldn't think it would take as long as it really does take. And you have to use the craft knife, because if I try to get in here with scissors, I'm going to have to mangle some other part of it. I can't cleanly cut this with scissors. So this kind of workaround for these stamped images where the ScanNCut would not be able to just recognize one part of it, this has absolutely been revolutionary for me and my crafting for a couple reasons. Number one, it's opening up the door to projects that previously I've said no to because it would just take so much time to hand cut. Number two, it's giving me another way to use my machine. And number three, it's helping me spend more time coloring and having fun and less time worrying about how to cut out images that really, you know, previously would only be cuttable by hand. So just remember my tip, you're only going to draw a line on the very outside or on the inside, only on the parts that you want it to remove. It's a lot of fun. I will see you guys next time. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any requests, any questions, any comments, be sure to leave them below. Happy crafting!